In the fading light of an autumn evening, Lily Morgan stood at the edge of a forgotten property, her 12-year-old frame dwarfed by the vastness of the overgrown land before her. The letter clutched in her hand, the one that had traveled across 3 states to reach her foster home, promised something she'd never had, a place to belong, abandoned for decades. The farmland she'd inherited from great-grandparents she'd never known seemed like little more than a burden of brambles and broken dreams, as shadows lengthened across weeds tall enough to swallow her whole, her eyes fixed on the weathered barn that stood defiant against time's passage. What secrets could possibly be hidden behind those splintered doors that hadn't been claimed by scavengers or decay years ago? The mountains had always been both Lily's prison and protection. As she trudged the familiar path from the school bus stop to her current foster home, her backpack patched in 3 places and faded from years of use, hung heavy with more than just text. It carried everything truly hers: a dog-eared copy of The Secret Garden, a chipped snow globe from her parents, and now the mysterious inheritance papers. 5 years had passed since the accident that took her parents on a rain-slicked mountain road. 5 years of different homes, different rules, different disappointments. The Crawfords, her current foster family, were neither cruel nor kind. They simply existed in her orbit, collecting their monthly check and providing the minimum requirements of shelter and sustenance. "They won't even notice if I'm gone for a few days," Lily murmured, kicking a pebble as she approached the weathered single-wide trailer she was expected to call home. Inside, Mrs. Crawford was watching daytime television, the glow of the screen illuminating her disinterested face. "That's you, girl. Dishes need washing." "No, hello. No, how was school? Just chores and obligations." "Yes, ma'am," Lily replied, slipping past to stash the inheritance letter under her thin mattress before heading to the sink, piled with breakfast dishes. Later that evening, while the Crawfords argued about bills in the next room, Lily slipped out the back door and across the patchy yard to the small house next door. Unlike the neglected Crawford property, Miss Abernathy's cottage boasted window boxes bursting with resilient mountain flowers, their colors defiant against the gray landscape. The elderly woman opened the door before Lily could knock. "I saw you coming, sweetheart. Hot chocolate's already on." Inside, surrounded by hand-crocheted blankets and the scent of cinnamon, Lily felt the knot in her chest loosen slightly. Mrs. Abernathy had been the one constant since she'd arrived at the Crawfords 18 months ago. "Something's changed," Miss Abernathy observed, setting down a chipped mug of cocoa. "I can always tell." Lily pulled out the crumpled envelope. "I got this yesterday. It's from a lawyer." Mrs. Abernathy's arthritic fingers gently smoothed the papers. Her lips moved silently as she read, eyes widening behind bifocals. "Land, child. This is quite something. Your great-grandparents' property. I never knew you had people in Harlan County." "Neither did I," Lily admitted. "Mom never talked about her grandparents." "Families are complicated." Mrs. Abernathy sighed. "But property, that's something real, something that can't be taken." She studied the documents more carefully. "According to this, you're the sole heir. The taxes are paid up through next year from the estate account. It's yours legally and free, but I'm 12, Lily said, the enormity of it washing over her. "The state holds it in trust until you're 18, but you can visit it, know it." Mrs. Abernathy reached for Lily's hand. "Child, do you understand what this means? You have roots now. Roots." The word echoed in Lily's mind as she stared into her cocoa. She'd been tumbleweed for so long. "I want to see it," she said suddenly, looking up with determination. "I need to." Mrs. Abernathy nodded slowly. "The Crawfords won't take you. They wouldn't care enough to stop me either." The old woman studied her for a long moment. "I still drive, you know. Not far these days, but Harlan County's only 3 hours from here." Hope, dangerous and fragile, fluttered in Lily's chest. "Would you? Really? We'll go Friday. I'll tell the Crawfords you're helping me with a church project." Mrs. Abernathy's eyes twinkled with conspiracy. "We'll take my old Buick. She still runs fine for her age." For the next 2 days, Lily walked through her routine in a daze, packing and repacking her worn backpack with essentials. Friday morning arrived with fog clinging to the mountains and dew sparkling on spider webs between fence posts. Mrs. Abernathy's ancient Buick grumbled to life as Lily slipped inside, her entire world contained in one backpack. "I can only stay 3 days," Mrs. Abernathy warned as they pulled away. "My arthritis won't let me do more, and I've got no one to feed my cat beyond that." "3 days is enough to start," Lily said, watching the only landscape she'd known fall away behind them. The mountains released their hold grudgingly, the road winding down and around like a reluctant goodbye. Ahead lay uncertainty, an inheritance of the unknown. But for the first time since losing her parents, Lily felt something pulling her forward that was stronger than what held her back. Daylight revealed what darkness had hidden. The property stretched nearly 15 acres, bordered by woods on 3 sides and a meandering creek on the 4th. Nature had reclaimed most of it. Tall grasses swayed where crops might once have grown, and saplings had taken root in what must have been open fields. Lily stood at the end of the overgrown driveway where Mrs. Abernathy had dropped her off, with promises to return in 3 days. The elderly woman had pressed a small cooler of food, a flashlight, and an old cell phone into Lily's hands before reluctantly driving away. "This is mine," Lily whispered, testing the weight of ownership on her tongue. The farmhouse sat 100 yards back from the road, a 2-story structure with a sagging front porch and boarded windows. Beyond it stood the weathered barn she'd glimpsed last evening, its grey timber somehow defying the decades of neglect. Walking toward the house felt like moving through time. Each step through the tall grass revealed forgotten objects: a rusted tricycle, the remains of a mailbox, a concrete bird bath overturned and half buried in soil. Lily paused to study each one, wondering about the hands that had last touched them. The front door of the farmhouse was secured with a heavy padlock, whose keyhole was clogged with rust and grime. Lily circled the structure, finding every ground floor window boarded and every door locked. Only a small window to what might have been a bathroom remained accessible, its glass long gone, the opening barely large enough for her slender frame. Not yet, she decided, continuing her exploration. Near an ancient oak tree stood the remains of a once elaborate birdhouse mounted on a pole. Its roof had partially collapsed, but the structure remained intact enough that Lily could see something metallic glinting inside. Standing on tiptoes and reaching carefully, her fingers closed around a key, old-fashioned and heavy, its teeth complex and unfamiliar. Heart pounding, she rushed back to the farmhouse front door, but the key didn't fit the padlock. She tried it in a side door with the same result. Whatever lock this key had once opened, it wasn't immediately apparent. By late afternoon, Lily had circled the entire property. She discovered the remains of a stone wall, a small pond choked with cattails, and the rusted frame of what might have been a tractor, half hidden in tall weeds. But nothing that explained why she'd inherited this place, or what secrets it might hold. As twilight approached, she returned to the farmhouse, determined to find shelter for the night. The small bathroom window was her best option. Removing her backpack, she wiggled through the opening, scraping her elbow in the process. Inside, the house smelled of dust and abandonment. What little furniture remained was draped in sheets that had yellowed with age. Lily moved carefully through the dim rooms, her footsteps echoing on wooden floors. Upstairs she found 3 bedrooms, one larger than the others, with a 4-poster bed still made up with faded linens. Exhausted from the day's explorations, Lily decided against disturbing the dusty bed. Instead, she returned to the front porch, which offered both shelter and a quick escape route if needed. Unrolling her sleeping bag in a corner where the roof still seemed solid, she ate one of Miss Abernathy's sandwiches and watched darkness claim her inheritance. Night brought sounds she wasn't accustomed to, no television blaring through thin walls, no arguments or slamming doors. Instead, crickets chirped, frogs called from the direction of the pond, and occasionally something rustled in the overgrowth. Each sound made her tense initially, then gradually became part of a natural symphony that was both foreign and oddly comforting. Sleep came in fits and starts. Shortly after midnight, she jolted awake to a distinct sound different from the natural chorus. Something metallic had scraped against wood, and it seemed to come from the direction of the barn. Lily sat upright, straining to hear. For several minutes, silence reigned. Then came another sound, a soft thud, like a door being carefully closed. "There's someone out there," she whispered, clutching her flashlight like a weapon. Dawn found her still awake, watching as the landscape slowly materialized from dark. Whatever or whoever had made those sounds hadn't approached the farmhouse. As pink light touched the highest branches of the oak tree, Lily made a decision. Today she would explore the barn. Morning dew dampened Lily's sneakers as she made her way toward the barn, alert for any signs of the nighttime visitor. The massive structure loomed larger as she approached, its weathered boards the color of steel wool where they hadn't been stained by decades of rain and snow. Two large doors dominated the front, designed to allow farm equipment to pass through. A smaller side door, human-sized, hung slightly ajar, exactly as she had seen it the previous evening. Lily paused, certain it had been closed when she'd surveyed the property yesterday. "Hello," she called, her voice sounding thin in the morning air. "Is anyone there?" Only birdsong answered. The side door's hinges protested with a low groan as Lily pushed it further open. She peered into the shadowy interior, allowing her eyes to adjust from the bright morning sun. Dust motes danced in shafts of light that penetrated through gaps in the wooden walls. When she tried to pull the door wider, it stuck stubbornly. Looking down, Lily discovered the cause. A wooden walking stick had fallen against the door, blocking its path. She bent to retrieve it. The stick was unlike anything she'd seen before. Rather than a simple branch, this was clearly handcrafted, its length polished smooth from years of handling, its surface adorned with intricate carvings of leaves and what appeared to be mountain landscapes. Near the top, barely visible in the dim light, two initials had been carved and filled with some darker material. "JM, JM," Lily whispered, running her fingers over the letters. The same initials that would be on her great-grandfather's documents. James Morgan. This had been his. With newfound reverence, she gripped the walking stick and returned to the main barn doors, which remained stubbornly closed. No padlock secured them, but years of disuse had practically welded them shut. Lily pushed with all her weight, but they refused to budge. Examining the seam where the doors met, she noticed they had warped slightly with age and moisture. She wedged the tip of the walking stick into the crack and leaned on it, using it as a lever. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden crack that made her jump, the right door shifted slightly. Encouraged, Lily repositioned the stick and tried again. This time, the door groaned and moved several inches. After 3 more attempts, she had created an opening wide enough to slip through. The interior of the barn was a cathedral of shadows and cobwebs. Sunlight streamed through the new opening and through gaps in the roof, illuminating motes of dust that swirled with each breath she took. The earthen floor was scattered with decaying hay and the husks of what must have once been farm equipment, now rusted beyond recognition. Lily moved cautiously, testing each step. The walking stick became a tool for balance and for gently probing suspicious piles of debris. In one corner stood an old workbench, its surface thick with dust, but still bearing the marks of tools and projects long abandoned. Above the workbench, a small shelf held mason jars filled with nails, screws, and other hardware that had been protected from the worst ravages of time. Lily stood on tiptoe, stretching to see what else might remain, when something fluttered down from a beam overhead. A photograph, yellowed with age, drifted to the floor. Lily picked it up carefully, brushing away decades of dust. 4 people stood before this very barn, a tall man with kind eyes and a full beard, a woman with her hair pinned up in an old-fashioned style, and 2 children, a boy and a girl, perhaps 10 and 7 years old. Something about the girl's eyes struck Lily like a physical blow. They were her mother's eyes, the same shape, the same intensity, which meant the girl in the photo must be her grandmother as a child. These were her people, captured in a moment long before she existed. Lily sank to her knees, cradling the photograph. For 5 years she'd had only memories of her parents, no extended family, no roots to claim. Now, holding tangible proof of generations before her, something long frozen inside began to thaw. "You were real," she whispered to the faces, "and this was your place." A sound from overhead made her look up sharply. Pigeons, disturbed by her presence, fluttered among the rafters. But as she watched their movement, Lily noticed something else. A section of the hayloft that seemed more deliberately arranged than the random chaos elsewhere. The walking stick still in hand, she looked for a way up. A ladder, missing several rungs, but still intact enough to climb, led to the loft. Carefully testing each remaining rung, Lily began to ascend, drawn by an inexplicable sense that something important waited above. The hayloft wasn't as rewarding as Lily had hoped. What she'd mistaken for deliberate arrangement was simply the remnants of the roof partially collapsing, creating a neat pile of debris. After a thorough search yielded nothing but splinters in her palms, she descended the ladder with a sigh of disappointment. Back on the main floor, Lily decided to be more methodical. She sectioned the barn in her mind, resolving to examine every corner before moving to the next. The walking stick became an extension of her arm as she gently probed piles of hay and debris, occasionally stirring up dust that made her sneeze. In the southeast corner, her stick struck something that gave a hollow, metallic sound. Dropping to her knees, Lily lit away layers of ancient hay to reveal animal droppings, not old and dried, but relatively fresh. "Something's been living in here," she murmured, sitting back on her heels. "Raccoons probably, or perhaps possum." The thought made her more cautious as she continued clearing the area. Beneath the droppings and hay, her fingers found splintered boards that didn't match the earthen floor elsewhere in the barn. As she cleared more debris, a pattern emerged. Wooden planks laid side by side, covering approximately a 6-foot square area. "A floor within a floor," Lily whispered, excitement building. She redoubled her efforts, clearing decades of accumulated grime. When the last of the hay was brushed aside, she sat back to examine her discovery. Unlike the rough-hewn boards making up the rest of the barn, these planks were finely milled and fitted together with precision. In the center, barely visible beneath years of dirt, was a recessed iron ring, a trapdoor. Heart pounding, Lily grasped the ring and pulled. It didn't budge. She braced herself, gripping with both hands, and tried again. The door shifted slightly but remained firmly closed. Examining it more closely, Lily realized this was no simple cellar entrance. An elaborate lock mechanism was built into one side, not a standard keyhole but something more complex, with multiple tumblers visible in a brass housing. "This is what the key is for," she breathed, reaching into her pocket for the rusty key she'd found in the birdhouse. But as she held it up against the lock, her hope faded. The teeth pattern was all wrong, too simple for this intricate mechanism. Whatever this trapdoor concealed, her key wouldn't unlock it. Standing, Lily brushed dirt from her jeans and considered her options. The sun had risen higher, its rays streaming through gaps in the barn walls and illuminating more of the interior. In this better light, she noticed what she'd missed earlier. Faint footprints in the dust, not her own, leading from the side door directly to where she'd uncovered the trapdoor. Someone else knew about this place. Someone had been here recently, perhaps even last night. A prickling sensation crept up Lily's spine. She wasn't alone in her search. Moving more cautiously now, she continued her exploration of the barn's main floor. Near the workbench, she discovered a partial footprint in a patch of softer earth. A boot print, much larger than her own small sneakers. The tread pattern was distinctive, with a circular design in the center. As she studied the print, a shadow fell across the barn door. Lily froze, then slowly straightened, the walking stick clutched tightly in both hands. An elderly man stood silhouetted in the doorway, his thin frame nearly as weathered as the barn itself. He wore overalls and a flannel shirt, despite the summer warmth, and a battered straw hat, shaded eyes that examined her with equal parts suspicion and curiosity. "Property's been empty near 30 years, the man said, his voice gravelly with age. "Now twice in a week, I find folks poking around." Lily swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she was. A 12-year-old girl alone on an abandoned property, miles from anyone who would miss her. "I'm not trespassing," she said, lifting her chin slightly. "This place belongs to me." The old man snorted. "That's so, and who might you be, little Miss Property Owner?" "Lily Morgan," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "James Morgan was my great-grandfather. I inherited this land." The change in the old man's expression was subtle but immediate. A softening around the eyes, a slight parting of lips in surprise. "Morgan's kin," he said softly, almost to himself. After all this time, he stepped fully into the barn, moving with the deliberate care of someone whose joints protested quick movements. As he came closer, Lily noticed he carried a mason jar filled with something dark. "Name's Jenkins," he said. "Hank Jenkins. I've been watching over this place since your people left." His gaze dropped to the walking stick in her hands, and something like recognition flickered across his weathered features. "Seems we have some talking to do, young Morgan." Mr. Jenkins settled himself on an overturned feed bucket, knees cracking in protest. He placed the mason jar on a nearby shelf. Lily could now see it contained some kind of dark preserves, and studied her with eyes that missed nothing. "You've got your grandmother's look about you," he said finally, "something in the way you hold your chin." Lily relaxed her grip on the walking stick slightly, but remained wary. "Did you know them well?" "My great-grandparents, James and Eleanor Morgan, were good people, salt of the earth." Miss Jenkins nodded toward the walking stick. "I see you found James's stick. He carved that himself, had quite the talent with wood." "The JM is for James Morgan," Lily said, looking down at the initials with new understanding. "Indeed it is. Your great-grandfather could make just about anything with his hands. Furniture mostly, but little things too. Toys for the local children at Christmas. Never charged what his work was worth." Lily took a hesitant step closer. "What happened to them? Why did they leave?" Miss Jenkins's gaze drifted to the barn's rafters. "That's the question, isn't it? One day they were here, the next, gone. Packed up overnight, it seemed. Left most everything behind. When was this? Let's see. Summer of '87. Your grandmother, that'd be James's daughter, Catherine. She'd already moved away by then. Married your grandfather and moved to Ohio, if memory serves." Lily tried to fit this information into what little she knew of her family history. Her mother, Emma, had rarely spoken of her own parents, saying only that they died when she was young. There had never been mention of great-grandparents or a family property, and no one's lived here since they left. "Not a soul," Mr. Jenkins confirmed. "Property taxes kept getting paid from some account, but the place just sat empty. Locals figured the Morgans would come back eventually. After 10 years, folks stopped expecting it." He reached for the mason jar. "Blackberry preserves. The wife makes them every summer. Thought you might be hungry camping out here by yourself." The gesture, so unexpectedly kind, made Lily's throat tighten. She accepted the jar with a murmured thanks. "You said you found people here twice in a week," she ventured. "Who else was here?" Mr. Jenkins's expression darkened. "Man in a city suit, asking questions. Said he represented some investment company interested in buying the property." I told him it wasn't for sale far as I knew. When was this? 3 days back. Didn't like the look of him. Too smooth, too practiced, like one of those television salesmen. He nodded toward the trapdoor Lily had uncovered. I see you found that. Lily glanced at the exposed wooden planks. Do you know what's down there? Root cellar, I always assumed. Though, he paused, scratching his chin. James was private about certain things, had his workshop down there, wouldn't let anyone in. Not even me, and we fished together 20 years. I found a key in the birdhouse, but it doesn't fit this lock. Mr. Jenkins nodded slowly. James was clever with mechanisms, made puzzles and such. Had a saying, what's worth protecting is worth protecting well. Lily's gaze returned to the trapdoor. What was he protecting? That, young lady, is the mystery. Mr. Jenkins stood with effort. Your great-grandfather was well respected hereabouts. Honest as the day is long, but there were rumors. What kind of rumors? That he was hiding something valuable. Some said he'd struck gold in the creek that runs through the back of the property. Others thought he'd inherited something from a wealthy client. Just talk, mind you. But when they left so sudden-like, the rumors grew. And no one ever found out the truth. Not that I know of. Mr. Jenkins adjusted his hat. Though that fellow in the suit seemed mighty interested in the barn particularly, asked if there was a cellar or storage areas. Lily felt a chill despite the summer warmth. What did you tell him? Told him I wouldn't know, which is God's truth. I've never been down there. He fixed her with a steady gaze. But you being family, that's different. If there's something down there that belongs to the Morgans, it's rightfully yours. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded piece of paper, handing it to Lily. My place is just over that rise to the east. Red mailbox, can't miss it. You run into any trouble, you come find me. Or if you just want a proper meal. Lily unfolded the paper to find a hand-drawn map with a route marked from the Morgan property to what must be Mr. Jenkins's home. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. Mr. Jenkins's weathered face creased in a smile. James Morgan would have done the same for my kin. That's how we do things around here. As he turned to leave, he paused at the barn door. Word of advice, whatever your great-grandfather thought worth hiding, others have been looking for it a long time. Be careful who you trust with what you find. Midnight brought a wind that whispered through the cracks in the farmhouse walls. Lily had moved her sleeping bag inside, choosing a small room downstairs with windows that offered a view of the barn. Jenkins's warning about the mysterious visitor had left her uneasy about sleeping on the exposed porch. Sleep came fitfully. Each creak of the old house settling made her eyes snap open, her hand instinctively tightening around the flashlight she kept beside her. The batteries were growing weak, the beam yellowing and thin when she tested it. A sound different from the house's usual groans jerked her fully awake. Lily sat up, straining to hear through the darkness. For several moments nothing. Then it came again, the unmistakable sound of footsteps on gravel. Heart hammering, she crept to the window. The quarter moon provided just enough light to make out shapes in the yard. A figure moved with purpose toward the barn, tall, definitely adult, wearing what appeared to be a long coat. Despite the summer night, instinct told Lily to hide, to pretend she wasn't there. But curiosity and something more, a sense of protectiveness toward her newfound inheritance, pushed her toward the door. Slipping her feet into sneakers and clutching the flashlight, Lily eased open the back door. The hinges, dry from disuse, gave a low whine that made her freeze. When no reaction came from the yard, she continued, stepping carefully onto the back stoop. The figure had reached the barn now, pausing at the side door where she'd entered earlier. Moonlight glinted briefly off something in their hand, a flashlight much more powerful than her own, its beam sweeping the barn's exterior. Crouching behind an overgrown lilac bush, Lily watched as the visitor pushed open the side door and disappeared inside. She counted slowly to 30, giving them time to move deeper into the barn, then crept across the yard, staying low among the tall weeds. At the barn door she hesitated. The smart choice would be to run to Mr. Jenkins's house and tell him someone was trespassing, but that would take too long. By the time they returned, the intruder would be gone. Besides, this was her property. She had every right to know who was prowling around it in the middle of the night. The door creaked as she eased it open just enough to slip inside. Immediately, she saw the beam of the intruder's flashlight sweeping across the barn floor, heading directly for the trapdoor she'd uncovered earlier. Lily ducked behind an old feed trough, making herself as small as possible. From her hiding place, she could see only the intruder's legs, dark pants and boots, with a distinctive tread pattern. The same pattern she'd seen in the footprint earlier. The light focused on the trapdoor, and Lily heard a muttered curse. The visitor knelt, setting something on the floor beside them. A bag or satchel, she couldn't tell which. There came the sound of metal tools clinking gently against each other. "Where is it?" A man's voice murmured, barely audible. "Has to be here somewhere." The voice sounded educated, city-bred, not the rural accent of Mr. Jenkins and the few locals she'd encountered on her bus rides through the mountains. This must be the man in the suit Mr. Jenkins had mentioned. For nearly 20 minutes, Lily remained motionless, muscles cramping in protest, as the man worked at the trapdoor lock. Occasionally he would stop, consult something she couldn't see, then try another approach. His frustration grew palpable, evident in his increasingly forceful movements and barely contained sighs. Finally, he sat back. "Not going to happen tonight," he muttered, gathering his tools. The flashlight beam swung toward Lily's hiding place. She pressed herself against the rough wooden wall, hardly daring to breathe. The light lingered for a heart-stopping moment, then moved on, sweeping the barn's perimeter before returning to illuminate the man's path to the door. Lily waited until his footsteps receded across the yard before risking movement. When she finally peered out the side door, she saw headlights briefly illuminate the road as a car pulled away. Legs trembling from both fear and cramp, she approached the trapdoor. In the weak beam of her flashlight, she could see fresh scratches around the lock mechanism, evidence of the intruder's failed attempt to force it open. Kneeling, she noticed something the man had overlooked or dropped, a scrap of paper that had slid partly beneath the trapdoor's edge. Carefully, she extracted it, holding it close to her light. It was torn from a larger document, with only a partial letterhead visible. Ashworth Antiquities and App. The rest was missing. Below was a handwritten note, "Confirm Morgan connection to K79 before proceeding." Lily stared at the paper, a chill running through her that had nothing to do with the night air. Someone believed there was something valuable hidden beneath this trapdoor, valuable enough to trespass for, to work at picking a complex lock in the middle of the night, and they would almost certainly be back. Dawn broke with a soft mist clinging to the fields, transforming the neglected farmland into something ethereal. Lily hadn't slept since the night visitor's departure. Instead, she'd kept watch from the farmhouse window, the cryptic note clutched in her hand, jumping at every sound. As soon as there was enough light, she returned to the barn, determined to examine the trapdoor more thoroughly in daylight. The scratches around the lock mechanism were even more evident now, ugly gouges in the finely crafted wood that made her irrationally angry. This was her inheritance, her family's legacy. The intruder had no right to damage it. Lily knelt beside the trapdoor, running her fingers along its edge. The craftsmanship was remarkable, the seam where it met the surrounding floor almost invisible when closed. Her great-grandfather had been talented indeed. As she leaned closer, she noticed something she'd missed before, a small gap near the lock mechanism where the wood had splintered slightly from the intruder's efforts. Something white was visible in the crack. Carefully, Lily wedged her fingernail into the gap and extracted what appeared to be the corner of a piece of paper. It tore slightly as she pulled, but revealed more paper beneath. Someone had hidden documents in the hollow space between the trapdoor and the floor beneath. Working slowly to avoid further damage, she managed to extract several pages, yellowed with age, the edges crumbling at her touch. They appeared to be torn from a journal or diary, the handwriting a delicate cursive that had faded to a pale sepia. The first page began mid-sentence, worried about James's obsession with the piece. He works through the night, barely eating, consumed by the intricate mechanisms. I've never seen him so devoted to a commission, nor so secretive. Lily's pulse quickened. This must be her great-grandmother, Eleanor's writing. The second page contained more. James received another letter today. He wouldn't let me see it, but I could tell it upset him deeply. He spent hours in his workshop beneath the barn, and when he emerged, he spoke of responsibility and safeguarding what's been entrusted to us. I fear this commission has become something more than mere craftsmanship. Lily spread the fragile pages carefully on the cleanest patch of floor she could find. There were 7 in total, though clearly not consecutive. The journal they'd been torn from must have contained far more. Another page caught her attention. The men who came today claimed to represent the client, but James didn't trust them. He sent them away, saying he would deal only with Kay directly. After they left, he began modifying the locks on the cellar door. What we protect properly, he told Catherine when she asked what he was doing. I've never seen such an elaborate mechanism. It appears to require 2 separate keys, used in a specific sequence. 2 keys. Lily glanced at the rusty key she'd found in the birdhouse. Was this one of them? And where might the second be? The next page contained a passage that made her breath catch. James has hidden the finished piece where he says no one will ever find it without both keys and the knowledge of how to use them. He burned all his design notes and drawings. When I expressed concern about what would happen should something befall us, he merely smiled and said, "Blood will find blood, Eleanor. When the time is right, what lies beneath will return to family. Blood will find blood." The phrase sent a shiver through Lily. Had her great-grandfather somehow known that one day she would be here, trying to unravel this mystery? The remaining pages contained more oblique references to what lies beneath and the heavy responsibility of safeguarding, but offered no concrete information about what exactly her great-grandfather had been protecting. The final page, however, held one crucial detail. James has modified the music box he made for Catherine's 16th birthday. He says it now serves a dual purpose, both a cherished family heirloom and a necessary component of what he calls the safeguard. He's given strict instructions that it must remain in the family, a music box. Lily sat back on her heels, mind racing. If the music box had been given to her grandmother, Catherine, it wouldn't be here on the property. It would have gone with her when she moved away. Unless perhaps it had been left behind during their hasty departure. She gathered the fragile journal pages carefully, tucking them into her pocket alongside the key. The farmhouse, which she'd only cursorily explored, now demanded a more thorough investigation. If her grandparents had left in a hurry, perhaps they'd overlooked more than just these hidden journal pages. The music box might still be somewhere in the house, and with it possibly the second key. The farmhouse felt different to Lily now, no longer just an abandoned building, but a vessel potentially holding family secrets. She moved through the rooms with new purpose, inspecting every shelf, cupboard and drawer that remained. Most had been emptied long ago, leaving only dust and faded wallpaper patterns where pictures had once hung. The kitchen contained a few chipped plates and mismatched cutlery, deemed too worthless to take. A bedroom closet held a single wire hanger, twisted and rusted. The bathroom cabinet contained an ancient bottle of aspirin, the label yellowed beyond legibility. If they left in a hurry, they might have overlooked something, Lily murmured, methodically tapping walls for hidden compartments like she'd seen in movies. By mid-afternoon, her search had yielded little. She'd found a child's marble lodged beneath a heater vent, a forgotten umbrella in the hall closet, and a handful of old receipts that had fallen behind a kitchen drawer. Nothing that suggested a music box or second key. Disappointed but undeterred, Lily turned her attention to the second floor. The stairs creaked ominously beneath her weight, but held upstairs. 3 bedrooms branched off a central hallway, a master bedroom and 2 smaller rooms that must have belonged to children. In what she assumed had been her grandmother Catherine's childhood bedroom, faded pink wallpaper, peeled at the seams, an iron bed frame remained, stripped of its mattress, and a small desk stood beneath a window overlooking the barn. Lily ran her hands along the desk's surface, feeling the indentations where someone, perhaps her grandmother, had pressed too hard while writing. One of the drawers was stuck, swollen from decades of humidity. She worked at it carefully until it finally loosened with a groan of protest. Inside lay a single hair ribbon, blue and faded, forgotten in the family's hasty departure. Nothing, Lily sighed, closing the drawer. She was about to leave when she noticed the floorboards beneath the desk. They didn't quite match the others in color and gray. Kneeling, she rapped her knuckles against them. The sound was different, hollow, heart-quickening. Lily pushed the desk aside with effort. The floorboards beneath didn't extend all the way to the wall as the others did. Instead, they formed a rough square about 2 feet across. No nails secured them to the joists below. A hiding place, she whispered, prying at the edge with her fingers. The boards lifted with surprising ease, revealing a small compartment. Inside lay a single object, wrapped in what had once been a white handkerchief, now grey with dust and age. Lily lifted it carefully, heavier than expected, with a satisfying solidity. Unwrapping it revealed a wooden box about the size of a thick, hard-cover book, its surface adorned with intricate inlaid patterns of different woods, forming a landscape of mountains and trees. The music box, she breathed. Along the edge ran a brass crank, tarnished green with age. With gentle fingers, Lily turned it slowly, feeling the resistance of mechanisms, long unused. For a moment she feared it was broken beyond repair. Then came a click, and the crank began to turn more easily. A melody emerged, halting at first, then smoother as the mechanisms warmed to their purpose. The tune was hauntingly familiar, though Lily couldn't place it. Something she'd heard as a small child, perhaps, before her parents' accident, a folk song her mother might have hummed, while cooking or driving. As the last notes faded, Lily felt tears. Well, this box had played for her grandmother, her mother, and now for her generations of Morgan women connected by its melody. Wiping her eyes, she examined the box more closely. The craftsmanship was exquisite, with dovetailed corners and a hinged lid that opened to reveal a velvet-lined interior. A tiny ballerina figurine, frozen mid-pirouette, stood on a small platform. But no key. Disappointed, Lily turned the box over in her hands. There had to be more. The journal pages had specifically mentioned the music box being modified to serve a dual purpose. She pressed gently on different parts of the inlay, testing for hidden catches. Nothing moved. The velvet lining was firmly attached, showing no signs of concealing a compartment beneath. As she set the box down in frustration, her finger caught on a nearly invisible seam along one side. Looking closer, she noticed that one section of the inlay pattern, a small pine tree, was slightly different in color from the surrounding wood. Carefully, she pressed the tree. Nothing happened. She tried twisting it, still nothing. On impulse, she pressed it while the music played. A soft click, and a panel on the opposite side of the box slid open half an inch. Hardly daring to breathe, Lily eased the panel fully open to reveal a tiny compartment. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded blue velvet, lay a key, smaller and more ornate than the one from the birdhouse, its pattern of teeth complex and unusual. And beneath it, a yellowed photograph of a young woman holding an infant with a handwritten note on the back. Catherine with Emma, her grandmother, her mother, her blood. Cradling the music box against her chest, Lily hurried back to the barn, the second key secure in her pocket, alongside the first. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the property as she pushed open the barn door, her heart racing with anticipation. The trap door waited, its elaborate lock mechanism now making more sense. 2 keys her great-grandmother had written. 2 keys used in a specific sequence. Kneeling beside it, Lily examined both keys in the dusty light streaming through the barn walls. The first found in the birdhouse was larger, cruder, its teeth a relatively simple pattern. The second from the music box was smaller, more delicate, with an intricate arrangement of teeth that seemed impossibly fine for a functional key. "Which one goes first?" she murmured, studying the lock mechanism. The brass housing contained what appeared to be two separate keyholes, though one was partially obscured by an overlapping plate. Lily tried inserting the larger key into the more visible keyhole. It slid in smoothly but wouldn't turn. Next, she attempted the smaller key in the same hole. It wouldn't even enter. "There must be a sequence," she muttered, remembering the journal's words. Setting the music box on the floor beside her, Lily cranked it again, hoping the melody might provide some clue. As the tune played, she noticed something she'd missed before, a pattern in the music, a repetition that seemed to emphasize certain notes. On impulse, she tried the larger key again, turning it in rhythm with the music's pattern. First right, then left, then right again, further than before. Something clicked inside the mechanism, and the overlapping plate shifted, fully revealing the second keyhole. "That's it!" Lily exclaimed, carefully inserting the ornate key into the newly accessible opening. This key turned only to the right, but required almost 2 full rotations before catching with a solid thunk. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a series of mechanical clicks like falling dominoes, the entire lock mechanism began to move. Gears turned, plates shifted, and finally, the trapdoor rose half an inch, lifted by some hidden counterweight system. Holding her breath, Lily grasped the edge and pulled. The heavy door rose smoothly, revealing a set of wooden stairs descending into darkness. The stale air that rose from the opening carried scents of wood, metal, and something else she couldn't identify, an old, dry smell, unlike anything she'd encountered before. Lily directed her flashlight's weakening beam down the stairs, but could see only a few steps before the darkness swallowed the light. She hesitated, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she was. Alone on an abandoned property, about to descend into an underground space that had been sealed for decades. What if the stairs collapsed? What if she became trapped below with no one knowing where she was? As these thoughts churned, her eyes fell on the music box. Its melody had stopped, but the craftsmanship remained a tangible connection to her great-grandfather. He had built this place, created this elaborate mechanism. Family didn't build traps for family. "Blood will find blood," she whispered, recalling the journal's words. Before she could change her mind, Lily swung her legs over the edge and placed her feet carefully on the first step. It held firm. She tested the second, then the third. Though the wood was old, it showed no signs of rot or weakness, another testament to her great-grandfather's skill. Descending slowly, counting steps to keep track, 12, 13, 14. Lily finally reached the bottom. Her flashlight, now giving only the faintest yellow glow, revealed a dirt floor and what appeared to be a short tunnel leading forward. As she took her first step away from the stairs, her foot caught on something. Looking down, she saw a folded piece of paper that had been disturbed by her movement. Setting the music box down carefully, she unfolded what proved to be a hand-drawn map. The faded ink showed an underground layout, a series of tunnels and chambers beneath the property, far more extensive than she would have guessed. One large chamber was labeled workshop, another storage. A third, smaller space bore only a symbol, a circle with a cross inside it. At the bottom of the map, in the same delicate handwriting as the journal pages, was a note: "Should the need arise, the eastern tunnel leads to the creek bank. The stone with the carved fish marks the exit, an escape route." Why would her great-grandfather need an escape route from his workshop? Lily looked up from the map, suddenly aware of a soft sound, not mechanical, but organic. Breathing. Something or someone was in the tunnel ahead, and her flashlight chose that moment to flicker and die. Lily froze, her breath caught in her throat. The breathing sound stopped too. Whoever was there had also gone still. For several heartbeats, the underground space held perfect silence. Then came a scratching sound, followed by the flare of a match. In its brief, sulphurous glow, Lily saw Miss Jenkins's weathered face, looking as startled as she felt. "Good heavens, child," he exclaimed as the match illuminated her wide eyes. "Nearly scared 20 years off my life." Relief flooded through Lily. "Mr. Jenkins, what are you doing down here?" The old man lit a kerosene lantern he'd been carrying, bathing the tunnel in a warm amber glow. "Could ask you the same, though I reckon you've more right to be here than I do." He nodded toward the music box at her feet. "I see you found Catherine's music box, and the key inside it." Lily's eyes narrowed slightly. "How did you know about the key?" Mr. Jenkins sighed, setting the lantern down between them. "Your great-grandfather James was my closest friend. He told me some things, not everything, mind you, but enough to keep watch over the place, if anything ever happened to him. So you knew about the underground workshop, the tunnels. Knew they existed. Never been down here myself until today." He gestured to a smudge of dirt on his overalls. "After our talk yesterday, got to thinking about that fellow in the suit. Something didn't sit right. Thought I'd better check things out. How did you get in?" "The lock needs both keys." Mr. Jenkins shook his head. "Used the creek entrance, the one with the fish stone. James showed it to me once, said if there was ever real trouble, that was how to get in unnoticed." He studied her face in the lantern light. "You've got questions, more than I can answer. But I know someone who might help." "Who?" "Town librarian, Miss Abernathy. No relation to your Miss Abernathy," he added, seeing her surprise. "Marjorie's been librarian here 40 years. If anyone knows the local history and the rumors about your family, it's her." Lizzie hesitated, torn between continuing to explore the underground space and seeking answers. "The workshop's been sealed near 30 years, Mr. Jenkins said gently. "Another day won't matter, but if that man in the suit comes back, and I reckon he will, you'll want to understand what it is he's after." The wisdom in his words decided her. "How far is the library?" "About 2 miles into town. I'd drive you, but my old truck's been temperamental lately. It's a straight walk down the main road, though." They carefully resealed the trap door, Lily securing both keys and the music box in her backpack. The afternoon sun had begun its westward descent as they emerged from the barn. "I'll keep an eye on things here," Mr. Jenkins promised. "You head into town and talk to Marjorie. Tell her Hank Jenkins sent you." The walk into Millfield, a name Lily spotted on a faded welcome sign, took nearly an hour. The small town consisted of a main street with weathered storefronts, many empty or repurposed, testament to changing rural economy. The library occupied a brick building that had once been the town hall, its columns and arched windows lending it a dignity the surrounding structures lacked. Inside, the scent of old books and furniture polish created an atmosphere of hushed reverence. A grey-haired woman with cat-eye glasses looked up from the circulation desk, her penciled eyebrows rising in surprise at the sight of a young visitor. "Can I help you, dear?" she asked, her voice carrying the soft lilt of the mountains. "Are you Miss Abernathy? Hank Jenkins sent me." "I'm Lily Morgan." The penciled eyebrows climbed higher. "Morgan? James and Eleanor's kin?" Lily nodded. "Their great-granddaughter." The librarian studied her for a long moment, then gestured toward a door marked Local History Room. "I believe we have some things to discuss." The small room contained filing cabinets, map drawers, and glass cases displaying local artifacts. Ms. Abernathy locked the door behind them and drew the shade. "Folks have wondered when a Morgan might return," she said, ailing a box from a cabinet. Though most expected someone older. She opened the box, revealing yellowed newspaper clippings, carefully preserved. "Your great-grandfather was somewhat of a local legend. Master craftsman, specialized in custom furniture and mechanical curiosities." She spread several clippings on the table. Headlines jumped out. "Local artisans selected for international commission. Morgan craftsmanship draws wealthy clientele." Mystery surrounds artist's sudden departure. One article, dated August 1987, caught Lily's attention. Morgan family leaves Millfield overnight. Rumors of hidden treasure persist. The article described how the respected Morgan family had departed without farewells, their property left largely intact. Local speculation ranged from financial troubles to threats from unnamed sources. Several paragraphs detailed rumors that James Morgan had hidden something of great value on his property, something never recovered despite occasional trespassers searching over the years. People love a mystery, Miss Abernathy said, noting Lily's interest in the article, especially one with a hint of treasure. Was there any truth to it? Lily asked cautiously. The librarian's eyes twinkled. James Morgan was commissioned to work on something valuable shortly before they left. That much is fact. The client was foreign, Russian, some said. The project was kept very secret. She pulled out another clipping, a photograph of a much younger Hank Jenkins standing beside a bearded man who had to be James Morgan. Both men were smiling, holding fishing rods beside the creek that ran through the Morgan property. Your great-grandfather told few people about his work, Miss Abernathy continued. But one thing many folks knew. His workshop required 2 keys to enter. He called it his dual custodian system. Afternoon shadows had lengthened into evening by the time Lily left the library, her mind whirling with new information. Miss Abernathy had shared everything she knew about the Morgans, which was substantial for a small-town librarian, but still left many questions unanswered. The walk back to the property seemed shorter, her thoughts occupied with connecting pieces of the growing puzzle. Her great-grandfather, a master craftsman commissioned by wealthy clients, a mysterious Russian connection. A workshop requiring 2 keys to access. A hasty departure that spawned decades of local rumors. As the Morgan property came into view, silhouetted against the sunset, something felt immediately wrong. Lily slowed her pace, scanning the scene before her. The farmhouse stood quiet as always, but a flicker of movement near the barn caught her attention. She ducked behind a large oak tree, heart pounding. A sleek black sedan, not Mr. Jenkins' old truck, was parked partially hidden behind the barn. Its windows were tinted, its license plate obscured by mud or dirt. As Lily watched, a man emerged from the barn, carrying what appeared to be a crowbar, tall and lean, wearing dark pants and a light-colored dress shirt, with the sleeves rolled up. He moved with purpose toward the farmhouse. The man in the suit, the intruder from last night. Lily crouched lower, grateful for the tall grass that provided additional cover. Should she run to Mr. Jenkins's house? He'd said it was just over the rise to the east, but the stranger stood between her and that direction, and running would surely attract his attention. The man disappeared into the farmhouse. Moments later, sounds of destructive searching drifted through the evening air. Furniture being moved, floorboards being pried up. He was tearing apart her inheritance, looking for something she had already found. Anger flared, temporarily overriding fear. This was her property, her family legacy, yet caution kept her hidden. A 12-year-old was no match for an adult intruder, especially one desperate enough to break in twice. From her hiding place, Lily could see both the farmhouse and the barn. The trapdoor was safely closed, both keys secure in her backpack. Whatever the intruder sought, he wouldn't find it without them. A crash from the farmhouse suggested frustration mounting. Soon the man emerged, wiping dust from his hands onto expensive-looking pants. He moved toward the barn again, his back to Lily's position. Taking a calculated risk, she crept closer to get a better view. The man was speaking into a cell phone, his voice carrying in the still evening air. "Nothing in the house," he said, his tone cultured, but tense. The old man must have been wrong about where they hid it. A pause as he listened to the response. "No, I'm certain no one's been here. Place is abandoned." Another pause. "The barn has some kind of cellar or underground space, but I can't access it. Lock mechanism is unlike anything I've seen." Lily inched closer, straining to hear. The Morgan file mentioned something about a dual key system, but I found nothing resembling a key." He kicked at the ground in frustration. This was supposed to be simple. The Morgan heirs are all gone. No one's claimed this property in decades. Lily's foot came down on a dry twig, which snapped with a sound like a gunshot in the quiet evening. The man spun around, scanning the area where she hid. "I'll call you back," he said tersely, ending the call and pocketing the phone. "Who's there?" he called, taking a few steps toward the tree line. Lily pressed herself against the ground, barely breathing. The man moved closer, now only about 20 feet from her hiding spot. "I know someone's there," he said, his voice deceptively calm. "Come out, and we can talk. This doesn't need to be complicated." A flash of movement to the east caught both their attentions. Mr. Jenkins's distinctive straw hat, visible as he crested the rise, heading toward the property. The man swore under his breath, clearly recognizing the approaching figure. He retreated quickly to his car, started the engine, and pulled away down the long driveway, accelerating as soon as he reached the main road. Lily waited until the sound of the engine faded completely before emerging from hiding. Mr. Jenkins had seen the departing car and quickened his pace, arriving slightly winded. "You all right, child?" he asked, concern evident in his weathered face. "Was that him again?" "The suit man." Lily nodded, brushing dirt and leaves from her clothes. "He was searching the house and tried to get into the barn. I heard him on the phone saying something about a Morgan file and how the heirs are all gone." Mr. Jenkins's expression darkened. "He doesn't know about you then. That's good, at least. But who is he? What does he want?" "Someone who knows or thinks he knows what your great-grandfather was hiding." Mr. Jenkins studied the tire tracks in the dirt. "And he's got resources behind him. That was a mighty expensive car. He'll come back, won't he?" Lily asked, already knowing the answer. "Most likely, but not tonight, I reckon. Not with me around." He placed a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "Come on, you'll stay with me tonight. Eleanor would haunt me till my dying day if I left James's great-granddaughter out here alone with that fella prowling about." As they walked toward Mr. Jenkins's property, a muddy boot print near the barn door caught Lily's attention, identical to the one she'd seen inside the barn yesterday. The intruder had returned, just as she'd feared, and he now knew there was an underground space beneath the barn. Miss Jenkins's house sat on 5 neatly maintained acres across the rise from the Morgan property. Unlike the abandoned farmhouse, his modest one-story home radiated care and continued habitation. Flower beds lined the walkway, and a well-swept porch held 2 rocking chairs and pots of geraniums. Inside, the house smelled of pipe tobacco and something savory simmering on the stove. Mr. Jenkins showed Lily to a small guest room that he explained had once belonged to his daughter. "Nancy lives in Raleigh now. 2 kids of her own," he said, turning down the quilt on a twin bed with practiced motions. "She visits at Christmas, but this room stays mostly empty." While Miss Jenkins prepared a simple dinner of beef stew and cornbread, Lily explored the living room, drawn to the photographs adorning the mantel. Most showed family, children and grandchildren at various ages and occasions, but one stood out, a faded color photograph of 2 young men standing proudly before a newly built barn. One was unmistakably a younger Mr. Jenkins. The other, bearded and broad-shouldered, could only be her great-grandfather. "That was the summer of '64, Mr. Jenkins said, coming up behind her. "We built that barn together, your great-granddaddy and me. Took us 3 months. Lily picked up the frame for a closer look. "You were friends for a long time. Since we were boys. Grew up neighbors. Served in the army together. Came back home and started our family side by side." He gestured for Lily to join him at the kitchen table. "James was more than a neighbor. He was like a brother." Over dinner, Miss Jenkins shared stories of her great-grandfather, his skill with woodworking that began as a boyhood hobby, his quiet determination, his devotion to family. "Your great-granddaddy could make just about anything with his hands. Mr. Jenkins said, refilling Lily's glass with sweet tea. Started with simple things, birdhouses, picture frames. By the time he was 30, rich folks from all over were commissioning his work, fine furniture mostly, but his real passion was mechanical puzzles and contraptions. Like the trapdoor lock, Lily offered. Exactly so. James believed anything worth protecting should be challenging to access. He chuckled. Used to drive Eleanor, your great-grandmother, crazy. Had to solve a puzzle just to get into their good china cabinet. As they washed dishes together, Lily gathered courage to ask the question that had been burning since her visit to the library. Mr. Jenkins, do you know what he was hiding in the workshop? What was so valuable that they left everything behind? The old man's hands stilled in the soapy water. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he dried his hands deliberately and gestured toward the living room. There's something I need to show you. From a drawer in his desk, Mr. Jenkins withdrew a keyring. With it he unlocked a wooden cabinet that Lily had assumed held hunting rifles or fishing gear, standard fare in rural households. Instead it contained a small safe. James gave me this the day before they left, he said, spinning the combination dial with practiced movement. Made me promise to keep it secure until a Morgan returned to claim the property. The safe door swung open, revealing a single manila envelope, sealed and marked with her great-grandfather's flowing script, for family only. I've never opened it, Mr. Jenkins said solemnly. Wasn't my place, but it's yours by rights. With trembling fingers, Lily broke the seal and withdrew several sheets of paper. The top document was a letter, dated August 12, 1987, just days before the Morgans' sudden departure. My dear child, if you are reading this, then blood has indeed found blood, and you have discovered at least part of our family's legacy. I regret the secrecy and the burden this may place upon you, but circumstances have left us little choice. The letter explained how, in early 1987, James had been commissioned to restore a mechanical object of extraordinary historical and financial value by a European collector who wished to remain anonymous. The item came to me through intermediaries, the letter continued. Only when I began work did I realize its true significance. What I had been entrusted with was not merely valuable, but historically priceless, an artifact many believed lost to time, and which certain powerful interests would stop at nothing to obtain. The letter described how, as news of the commission had somehow leaked, strangers began appearing in Millfield, asking questions. Then came thinly veiled threats. When the threats extended to Eleanor and Catherine, I made the most difficult decision of my life. We would leave everything behind, our home, our community, our identity, taking with us only what was necessary to begin anew elsewhere. The artifact would remain hidden where none would find it without the keys and knowledge I've kept within our family. The final paragraph sent a chill through Lily. If you have found this letter, then you have likely found the keys as well. With them comes a choice and a responsibility. The artifact is legally ours. The documentation stored with it confirms this, but its discovery will bring attention, some of it unwelcome. Proceed with caution, and remember that legacy is measured not in possessions, but in character. It was signed simply, your loving ancestor, James Morgan. He never told you what it was? Lily asked, looking up from the letter. Never did, Mr. Jenkins confirmed. Said it was safer if I didn't know, but whatever it is, his weathered hand covered hers. It's caused trouble once already. And that fella in the suit means trouble's found its way back. Morning arrived with soft rain pattering against the windows of Mr. Jenkins's guest room. Lily woke to the scent of coffee and bacon, momentarily disoriented before remembering the events of the previous day. Her backpack sat beside the bed, containing the 2 keys, the music box and her great-grandfather's letter. In the kitchen, Mr. Jenkins stood at the stove, transferring crisp bacon to a paper towel-lined plate. Hope you're hungry, he said by way of greeting. Always did believe thinking works better on a full stomach. Over breakfast they formed a plan. The mysterious man in the suit would likely return, perhaps with reinforcements, so time was of the essence. They needed to access the underground workshop and find whatever her great-grandfather had hidden there, before unwelcome visitors discovered Lily's connection to the property. "We'll need to be careful," Mr. Jenkins cautioned as they drove to the Morgan property in his truck, which had mercifully started after some coaxing. "That fella struck me as the determined type. He might have someone watching the place." They approached via the back acres, parking the truck in a stand of trees and walking the remaining distance. The property appeared undisturbed in the grey morning light, raindrops glistening on the tall grass. Inside the barn, Lily knelt beside the trapdoor, the 2 keys and music box laid out before her. "I think I understand how it works now," she said, studying the lock mechanism with newfound appreciation for her great-grandfather's craftsmanship. "It's not just about having the keys, it's knowing the correct sequence." She cranked the music box, letting its melody fill the barn while she manipulated the first key according to the pattern she'd discovered. Right, left, right. The mechanism responded, revealing the second keyhole. "Your great-granddaddy always did love puzzles," Mr. Jenkins remarked, watching with undisguised admiration. "Made you work for the solution." "But there's something else," Lily said, remembering her experience from yesterday. "After using both keys, I think there's a third step." She inserted the ornate key from the music box into the second keyhole, turning it through the required rotations. As before, the lock mechanism activated and the trapdoor rose slightly. "Now watch," she instructed, cranking the music box again and letting it play as she lifted the trapdoor. This time, she noticed what she'd missed in her excitement yesterday. A small dial set into the underside of the door, marked with musical notes. As the music box played, the dial rotated in sync with the melody. "It's synchronized," she breathed. "The mechanism inside the trapdoor is listening for the correct tune." When the music reached its final notes, a series of clicks emanated from within the wooden structure, and the stairs beyond the trapdoor, illuminated with small lights embedded in the walls, battery-powered LEDs that had somehow remained functional over the decades. "Well, I'll be," Miss Jurgs whispered. "James outdid himself with this one." The stairs descended into what appeared to be a short tunnel, now softly illuminated by the hidden lighting system. At the bottom, where Lily had found the map yesterday, the passage branched in 3 directions: left, right, and straight ahead. The map showed the workshop straight ahead, Lily recalled, the storage room to the right, and the escape tunnel to the left. "Best stick with the workshop first," Mr. Jenkins suggested. "That's likely where he kept his most important work." They proceeded cautiously down the central tunnel, which extended about 30 feet before ending at a heavy wooden door. Unlike the trapdoor above, this one featured a conventional lock, a simple keyhole that matched the smaller, more ornate key from the music box. "One final barrier," Mr. Jenkins murmured. James was nothing if not thorough. The key turned smoothly and the door swung inward with surprisingly well-oiled hinges. Beyond lay a chamber approximately 20 feet square, its walls lined with workbenches and tool cabinets. In the center stood a large table, illuminated by more of the LED lights that had activated with the music box's melody. Mr. Jenkins let out a low whistle. "It's exactly as he left it." The workshop appeared frozen in time, tools arranged meticulously on pegboards, jars of hardware organized by size and type, notebooks stacked neatly on shelves. A thin layer of dust covered everything, but otherwise the space could have been abandoned yesterday rather than decades ago. On the central table lay what appeared to be a project in progress, a wooden case approximately 2 feet long, its lid secured with another of James Morgan's mechanical locks. Beside it sat a leather-bound journal, a magnifying glass, and several specialized tools Lily didn't recognize. "Is that it?" she asked, approaching the table. "The valuable artifact?" Mr. Jenkins shook his head slowly. "That's just the outer case. Whatever's inside must be the real treasure." The case resembled a puzzle box, with inlaid wood forming intricate patterns that shifted when Lily ran her fingers over them. Unlike the trapdoor lock, this one appeared to have no keyhole, just a series of sliding panels and buttons that presumably needed to be manipulated in the correct sequence. "Your great-grandfather called these his mechanical puzzles," Mr. Jenkins explained. "No keys, just patterns and sequences." The right combination makes the mechanism release. Lily studied the box carefully, noticing that the inlay patterns matched those on the music box in subtle ways. The same mountain silhouette, similar tree arrangement. She placed the music box beside the larger case, comparing the designs. They're connected, she realized. The music box isn't just a key, it's the instruction manual. As she spoke, her fingers brushed against a small indentation on the puzzle box that matched the dimensions of the music box perfectly. "It fits here," she whispered, carefully placing the smaller box into the indentation. "It's the final piece." When the music box settled into the indentation, it fit perfectly, as though the larger puzzle box had been built specifically to receive it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lily noticed a small winding key on the side of the larger box, similar to the one on the music box, but proportionally bigger. "I think we need to wind them together," she said, reaching for the key. Mr. Jenkins placed a cautioning hand on her arm. "Hold up, child. Your great-grandfather's letter mentioned documentation stored with the artifact. Might be wise to look around a bit more before we open that box. Could be instructions or warnings we should know about." It was prudent advice. Lily stepped back from the table and surveyed the workshop more carefully. The space was remarkably well preserved. The underground location and careful sealing had protected it from moisture and pests that would have destroyed a conventional basement. The workbenches that lined the walls held an assortment of specialized tools, many of which Lily didn't recognize. Precision instruments for measuring and cutting. Tiny hammers and picks that might belong to a jeweler rather than a carpenter. Magnifying glasses mounted on adjustable arms. A microscope that seemed out of place in a woodworking shop. "These aren't just woodworking tools," she observed, examining a set of delicate metal implements arranged on a velvet cloth. "James worked with many materials," Mr. Jenkins confirmed. Wood was his first love, but he learned metalwork, clockmaking, even some jewelry techniques for his more elaborate commissions. On one shelf, Lily discovered a row of leather-bound journals, each labeled with dates spanning several decades. She selected the most recent one, 1987, the year her family had left, and carefully opened it. The pages contained detailed notes and sketches written in her great-grandfather's precise hand. Most entries documented custom furniture pieces and their progress, but in March, the tone of the journal changed. Entries became more cryptic, often using only initials or code words. "K's request proceeding," read one entry. "Mechanism more complex than initially assessed. Requires micro-adjustment of internal components." Later entries mentioned the Egg Project and included technical sketches of what appeared to be an oval object with intricate internal mechanisms. As Lily flipped through the pages, a loose sheet of paper fell out. An official-looking document on letterhead she didn't recognize, written in both English and what appeared to be Russian. "Certificate of Provenance and Transfer," the heading read. Below was a detailed description of an item called the Imperial Swan Egg, identified as a previously undocumented Fabergé Imperial Easter egg, created circa 1901 for Tsarina Alexandra Feodorovna. The document certified that ownership had been legally transferred from K. Petrov to Morgan as compensation for restoration services and for safekeeping during times of political uncertainty. Lily's hands trembled as she passed the document to Mr. Jenkins. "Do you know what a Fabergé egg is?" she asked. The old man's eyes widened as he read, "Only by reputation. They're jeweled eggs made for the Russian royal family over a century ago. Worth millions, from what I've heard. Museums and collectors around the world hunt for the lost ones." Lost ones? Story goes that when the Russian Revolution happened, many royal treasures disappeared. Some Fabergé eggs have never been found. He looked up from the document. "If your great-grandfather had one of the missing imperial eggs, that's why they had to leave," Lily realized. Someone found out what he had. Further exploration of the workshop revealed more evidence of James Morgan's secret project. A cabinet contained specialized tools for working with precious metals and gemstones. A drawer held sketches and photographs of other Fabergé eggs, presumably for reference. In a small safe behind a sliding panel, which opened to the same key that had unlocked the workshop door, they found additional documentation, letters from K. Petrov discussing the restoration, insurance papers valuing the egg at an astronomical sum, and a sealed envelope addressed to my heir. Lily opened this last item with reverent care. Inside was a letter in her great-grandfather's handwriting, dated the same day as the one Mr. Jenkins had kept. "If you are reading this," it began, "you have found your way to my workshop and discovered the nature of the treasure I was entrusted to protect. The imperial swan egg came to me damaged and in danger. Its owner, Konstantin Petrov, was a descendant of a noble Russian family who escaped the revolution with only a few precious heirlooms. When political circumstances made his position in Europe untenable, he sought someone who could both restore the egg and keep it safe until the world was more stable." The letter went on to explain how James had completed the restoration, but before Petrov could reclaim the egg, he had died suddenly in Switzerland. With his death, ownership had legally transferred to James, a contingency Petrov himself had arranged, trusting the American craftsman more than his own distant relatives, who might sell the historical treasure for quick profit. "I accepted this responsibility solemnly," the letter continued, "but when strangers began asking about my work with the Russian, I feared Petrov's relatives had traced the egg to me. The threats that followed confirmed my suspicion. To protect our family, we left everything behind, everything except the documentation proving our rightful ownership." The letter concluded with words that resonated deeply. "This egg is not merely valuable in monetary terms. It is a piece of history, art and human achievement that deserves to be preserved and appreciated. Whatever you decide to do with it, remember that you are now its custodian, not merely its owner. Choose wisely, with an eye to legacy rather than profit." With newfound understanding, Lily and Miss Jenkins returned their attention to the puzzle box on the central table. Inside lay an artifact of extraordinary value and historical significance, one that had forced her family to abandon their home and start anew elsewhere. One that had brought danger then, and might do so again now. "Are you ready?" Mr. Jenkins asked softly. Lily nodded, reaching for the winding key. The winding key turned smoothly, setting off a series of quiet clicks within the puzzle box. When Lily released it, the music box nestled in the indentation began to play its familiar melody, but richer somehow, amplified and enhanced by mechanisms within the larger container. As the tune reached its final notes, panels on the sides of the box slid open, revealing intricate gears and levers that began to move in synchronized patterns. The lid, previously sealed tight, rose slowly on hidden hinges. Inside, nestled on dark blue velvet, lay an oval object approximately 6 inches high. For a moment, neither Lily nor Mr. Jenkins spoke, both transfixed by the exquisite craftsmanship before them. The egg stood upright on a base of gold, its surface a shimmering pale blue enamel overlaid with a lattice of platinum and diamonds that caught the light from the workshop's LED illumination. Tiny pearls dotted the lattice intersections, and at the very top perched a small diamond star. "It's beautiful," Lily whispered, afraid to touch it. "Like nothing I've ever seen," Mr. Jenkins agreed, his weathered face reflecting childlike wonder. The egg's surface featured delicate painting, winter scenes of a frozen lake where swans glided among ice floes, rendered with such skill that the birds seemed almost in motion. Around the widest part of the egg ran a band of larger diamonds, interspersed with sapphires, forming a glittering equator. "There's something else," Lily noticed, pointing to a small gold button nearly hidden among the decorations. "I think it opened." With trembling fingers, she gently pressed the button. The upper half of the egg opened like a flower blooming, revealing the surprise within, a perfect miniature swan sculpted in white gold and platinum, its wings extended as if taking flight. The swan rested on a base of rock crystal carved to resemble water, with tiny diamonds suggesting splashes beneath its wings. "The imperial swan egg," Mr. Jenkins breathed. just as the documents described. Lily carefully closed the egg's upper half, securing it with a soft click. "How much do you think it's worth?" she asked. "Millions, certainly, but its historical value might be even greater. Those documents said it was previously undocumented, a lost imperial egg that the world doesn't know exists." Mr. Jenkins shook his head in amazement. "Your great-grandfather was entrusted with an incredible treasure, and now it's my responsibility," Lily said, feeling the weight of her inheritance. They carefully returned the egg to its velvet nest and closed the puzzle box, which resealed itself with the same mechanical precision with which it had opened. Gathering the documentation, they discussed what to do next. "That man in the suit, he must know, or at least suspect, what's hidden here," Lily reasoned. "The note I found mentioned Ashworth antiquities. They must be dealers or collectors, and not too particular about how they acquire rare items, I'd wager," Mr. Jenkins added grimly. "We need to secure this properly before he comes back." A sound from above interrupted their conversation, the unmistakable creak of the barn door opening. They froze, exchanging alarmed glances. Someone had entered the barn. Miss Jenkins motioned for silence and gestured toward the left-hand tunnel, the escape route to the creek. Lily nodded, carefully lifting the puzzle box that contained the egg. It was heavier than she'd expected, but manageable. Before they could move, however, footsteps sounded on the stairs leading down from the trapdoor. The intruder had already found the entrance and was descending. "In here." Quickly, Jenkins whispered, oaring Lily toward a narrow door she hadn't noticed before. A storage closet built into the workshop's wall. They slipped inside, leaving the door open just a crack to observe the workshop. A beam of flashlight swept the room, followed by the man in the suit. He moved with confidence now, as if he'd expected to find the underground space. His expensive shoes clicked on the concrete floor as he approached the central table where, moments before, the puzzle box had rested. "Empty," he muttered, frustration evident in his voice. He played the flashlight around the workshop, illuminating the workbenches and tool cabinets. But they were here, recently. He pulled out a cell phone and dialed quickly. "Ashworth. It's Lambert. I found Morgan's workshop." He paused, listening. "No, the egg isn't here, but someone's been here very recently. The dust is disturbed, and there are fresh footprints." Another pause. "Yes, small footprints. A child. Possibly." Lily's heart hammered so loudly she feared the man might hear it from across the room. Jenkins placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "I'll search the tunnels, the man," Lambert continued. "They can't have gone far, but we need to move quickly. If they've found the egg and understand what it is." His voice trailed low as he moved toward the tunnel from which they'd originally entered. Once his footsteps receded, Mr. Jenkins whispered urgently, "The creek tunnel. It's our only chance. He'll check the main entrance first, but he'll be back this way soon." Clutching the puzzle box containing the priceless Fabergé egg, Lily followed Mr. Jenkins into the left-hand tunnel, racing against time and the determined antiquities hunter who would stop at nothing to claim her inheritance. The creek tunnel was narrower than the main passage, its ceiling lower, forcing Mr. Jenkins to stoop as they hurried forward. Lily clutched the puzzle box containing the egg, its weight growing more burdensome with each step. Behind them, Lambert's voice echoed faintly as he discovered the empty storage closet. "He knows we're here," Lily whispered, quickening her pace. "Just a bit further," Mr. Jenkins encouraged. The tunnel opens near the big willow by the creek bend. After what seemed an eternity but was perhaps only minutes, they reached a rough wooden door set into the earthen wall. A carved fish, the marker mentioned on the map, adorned its surface. Mr. Jenkins pushed it open, revealing a narrow opening partially concealed by tree roots and brush. They emerged into the dappled shade of a massive willow, its curtain of branches providing perfect cover. The creek burbled nearby, masking any sounds of their escape. From this vantage point, the barn was just visible through the trees, but they remained hidden from view. "My truck's not far," Mr. Jenkins said. If we circle around through the woods, we can reach it without being spotted. As they made their way carefully through the underbrush, Lily's mind raced. The egg was real. A priceless historical artifact that had somehow become her family's responsibility. What should she do with it? Keep it hidden, as her great-grandfather had? Sell it to provide for her future? Donate it to a museum? And what about Lambert and Ashworth Antiquities? They clearly knew about the egg and were determined to acquire it by any means necessary. 20 minutes of cautious navigation brought them to Mr. Jenkins's truck, still hidden among the trees where they'd left it. As they drove away from the property, Lily kept the puzzle box secure on her lap, hyper-aware of its precious contents. "We need help," Mr. Jenkins said as they bounced along back roads to avoid the main highway. "Professional help. Someone who knows about these things and can authenticate the egg properly. But who can we trust?" Lily asked. "Lambert might not be the only one after it." "I know someone," Mr. Jenkins replied after a thoughtful pause. "Eleanor's nephew, your great-grandmother's sister's boy, became a professor of art history. Lives about 2 hours from here. If anyone would know what to do, it'd be Robert." A series of phone calls from Mr. Jenkins's landline led to a plan. Professor Robert Ellis agreed to come immediately, bringing a colleague from the university's museum who specialized in Russian artifacts. By early evening, Lily found herself sitting at Miss Jang's kitchen table across from two fascinated academics who could barely contain their excitement as they examined the imperial swan egg. "This is extraordinary," Professor Ellis breathed, his gloved hands carefully turning the egg to examine every detail. "The workmanship is unmistakably Fabergé. The design elements consistent with the imperial eggs created around 1900. The surprise mechanism functions perfectly." His colleague, Dr. Miriam Chen, methodically photographed the egg from every angle. "The swan motif would have been significant to the imperial family," she explained. "The swan was a symbol associated with Empress Alexandra. This was clearly a personal gift from the Tsar." They spent hours reviewing the documentation Lily had found in the workshop, the certificate of provenance, the letters from Konstantin Petrov, the transfer of ownership papers. "These appear legitimate," Dr. Chen confirmed. "The chain of ownership is unusual, but legally sound." Konstantin Petrov was indeed a Russian émigré, known to have family connections to the imperial court. "His transfer of ownership to your great-grandfather is properly executed. So it's really mine?" Lily asked, the reality still difficult to comprehend. "Legally, yes." Professor Ellis nodded. "You are the heir to the Morgan estate, which includes this extraordinary artifact. However," he added, leaning forward earnestly, "with ownership comes significant responsibility. This egg isn't just valuable, it's historically priceless, one of the lost imperial eggs that scholars have sought for decades." "What should I do with it?" Lily asked, looking around at the adults who now shared her secret. Dr. Chen spoke carefully. "That's entirely your decision, but I would strongly recommend having it properly authenticated by additional experts, then securing it in a climate-controlled environment until you decide its ultimate fate." "There are several options," Professor Ellis added. "Private ownership, which would require significant security measures, sale to a collector or institution, which would likely bring several $1 million, or loan to a museum, which would preserve your ownership while sharing this historical treasure with the world." The conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock at the front door. Mr. Jenkins peered through the curtains, then turned to the group with an alarmed expression. "It's him, Lambert, and he's not alone." Through the window, Lily could see Lambert standing on the porch, accompanied by an older man in an expensive suit and two uniformed police officers. "They've brought the authorities," Dr. Chen whispered. "This complicates matters." "Not necessarily," Professor Ellis countered, pulling out his phone. "If they want to involve officials, so can we." He dialed quickly. "Catherine? Robert Ellis. I need your help urgently. Remember that State Department contact you mentioned? The one specializing in cultural artifacts? We need them now." As Mr. Jenkins, reluctantly opened the door. Lily clutched the documentation proving her ownership. Whatever happened next, she was determined that her great-grandfather's legacy and the trust he had placed in his descendants would not be betrayed. The imperial swan egg, hidden for decades, had finally emerged into the light. And with it, Lily Morgan's life had changed forever. 6 months later, Lily stood on the front porch of the Morgan farmhouse, her farmhouse watching the autumn leaves dance across the newly cleared yard. The property had transformed since that fateful summer day when she'd first arrived. The tall grass had been mowed, the flower beds restored, the house repaired and painted a cheerful blue with white trim. Inside, Abernathy bustled about the kitchen, having driven down from the mountains to help Lily settle into her new life. The elderly woman had been astonished by the turn of events, but delighted by the outcome. She was now Lily's legal guardian, with Miss Jenkins serving as a local co-guardian to satisfy the court's requirements. The confrontation that night at Mr. Jenkins's house had ended far differently than Lambert and his employer Victor Ashworth had anticipated. Professor Ellis's contact at the State Department had arrived with representatives from the FBI's art crime team, shifting the balance of power dramatically. Faced with experts who quickly authenticated the imperial swan egg and the documentation proving Lily's ownership, Ashworth had been forced to retreat. His claims of acting on behalf of Petrov's distant relatives collapsed under scrutiny, revealing a history of questionable acquisitions and legal complaints against his antiquities firm. The aftermath had been a whirlwind of experts, officials, and decisions. With guidance from Professor Ellis and a team of advisors, Lily had made choices that would have made her great-grandfather proud. The egg itself now resided primarily at the National Museum of American History as part of a special exhibition on immigrant craftsmen and their contributions to American art. A placard prominently credited James Morgan's craftsmanship in restoring the piece, alongside the remarkable story of how it came to be in a rural barn for decades. The loan agreement, carefully structured by attorneys provided pro bono by the museum, ensured that the egg would return to Millfield for 1 month each year, to be displayed in a purpose-built secure gallery that was now under construction in the town's renovated library building. Most importantly, the arrangement provided for Lily's education and future, with proceeds from the exhibition rights and a modest percentage of the merchandising revenue flowing into a trust fund. It wasn't the fortune that selling the egg outright might have brought, but it was enough to restore the Morgan property and provide for Lily's needs through college and beyond. The Crawfords had signed away their foster parent rights with suspicious haste once they realized Lily had inherited property, clearly fearing scrutiny of their neglectful care. The judge had been all too happy to grant guardianship to Mrs. Abernathy, with Miss Jenkins's local support ensuring Lily could remain connected to her newly discovered roots. "Penny for your thoughts," said Mr. Jenkins, joining Lily on the porch with 2 glasses of lemonade. "I was just thinking about how much has changed," she replied, accepting the cold glass. "6 months ago, I had nothing that was really mine. Now I have too much." Mr. Jenkins chuckled. "Your great-grandfather would say there's no such thing as too much belonging, only too little sharing." The sound of tires on gravel announced visitors, Professor Ellis and Dr. Chen, arriving for the small celebration planned for that evening. Tonight would mark the official opening of the James Morgan School of Craftsmanship, a workshop program housed in the restored barn where local youth could learn traditional woodworking and other crafts. The underground workshop had been preserved as James had left it, though the tunnel entrance was now properly secured. The story of the imperial swan egg had brought unexpected attention to Millfield, creating opportunities for the small town that had protected the Morgan property all those years. As twilight softened the autumn landscape, Lily stood in the center of the gathering in her barn. Mrs. Abernathy and Mr. Jenkins chatted with the professors. The local librarian, Abernathy, showed a group of children how to use traditional woodworking tools under the watchful eye of an instructor hired for the new school. On a restored workbench sat a framed family photograph, the same one Lily had found in the barn that first day. Beside it stood a newer frame containing a picture taken just last week. Lily, Mrs. Abernathy and Mr. Jenkins standing proudly before the farmhouse, the three of them forming a new kind of family born from extraordinary circumstances. Lily ran her fingers over her great-grandfather's carved walking stick, which she now used to explore the property's furthest reaches. The initials JM caught the light, a tangible connection to the man whose craftsmanship and principles had changed her life. "Blood will find blood," she whispered, recalling the journal's words. A gentle hand fell on her shoulder, Mrs. Abernathy, her eyes crinkling with affection. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" Lily looked around at the restored barn, the eager children learning crafts that might otherwise be forgotten, the adults who had become her unlikely family. Outside, through the open barn doors, she could see the farmhouse, her home, warm lights glowing in the gathering dusk. "I was thinking," Lily said, a smile spreading across her face, "that I finally understand what my great-grandfather meant about legacy being measured not in possessions but in character." The imperial swan egg, beautiful as it was, had proven to be the least valuable part of her inheritance. The true treasure had been the connection to her past and the foundation for her future, a place at last to belong.